All right, let's talk about New York City and a multi-million-dollar problem that's brewing for building owners. This is a big one, and it's not going away. So let's dive right in. So could a new law in New York City really cost your building millions of dollars? For a whole lot of you out there, the answer is a big, fat yes. We're talking about a new law that's completely changed the game. Suddenly, energy efficiency isn't just a nice little bonus anymore. Nope, it's a financial must-do. And the stakes are incredibly high. So the real question is, are you ready for this? Okay, so what's causing all this commotion? Well, it's a piece of legislation called Local Law 97. And let me tell you, this isn't just some minor rule change. It's one of the most ambitious climate laws for buildings, like anywhere in the world. And it is absolutely shaking up the real estate scene in New York. So what does it actually do? Well, Local Law 97, which was passed back in 2019, puts a strict yearly cap on carbon emissions. And this applies to most big buildings. We're talking anything over 25,000 square feet. This is really important. It's not a guideline or a friendly suggestion. It's a hard limit, a cap, that's calculated based on your building size and what it's used for. And the sheer scale here is, well, it's kind of mind-boggling. We're talking about roughly 50,000 buildings. That's across all 5 boroughs of New York City. Think about that. That's a massive chunk of the city's buildings, everything from giant office towers in Manhattan to residential co-ops in Brooklyn and Queens. Okay, so you might be wondering why focus so hard on buildings. Well, this chart tells you everything you need to know. It turns out big buildings are the #1 source of greenhouse gas emissions in the city. I mean, look at that. They're responsible for about 2/3 of the entire city's emissions. So if New York City was serious about tackling climate change, this is exactly where they had to start. It just makes sense. And here's the kicker. This isn't a one-time thing. The law is designed to tighten the screws over time. The first deadline just hit in 2024. But look ahead. By 2030, the goal is a 40% cut in emissions. And by 2050, we're talking an 80% reduction or more. So get this. Even if your building is totally fine right now, you could be looking at huge fines just a few years down the road. So, with these deadlines getting closer and closer, building owners are stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's a real dilemma, because just ignoring it, that's not an option anymore. The financial hit is just too big. So let's talk about just how much this could hurt the wallet. All right, if there's one number you need to burn into your brain, it's this one. $268. That's the fine for every single metric ton of carbon your building goes over its limit. For the whole year. And, you can think of it like a speeding ticket, except it's not a one-time thing. It's a ticket you get every single year. For a big building, that adds up, fast. We're talking hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars. I love this quote. It just nails it. It says that non-compliance basically turns your building's inefficiency into a recurring tax. That's the perfect way to put it, right? It's not a one-off penalty you pay and move on. No, it's this constant drain. A tax you pay every year for being inefficient. And it's a tax that's only going to go up as those caps get lower. And that brings us to this, the big dilemma. It really boils down to 2 choices, and neither one is great. Option 1, you can basically do nothing and just keep paying those fines, year after year after year. Option 2, you can bite the bullet and pour a ton of money into a big, expensive retrofit. We're talking a huge upfront investment that can be really disruptive. See what I mean? It's a tough spot to be in. But what if there's another way? What if this isn't just about dodging a penalty? What if you could find a path that not only makes you compliant, but actually saves you money and adds value in the long run? Well, that's exactly the idea behind a strategy called smart electrification. Okay, so how does this smart electrification thing work? The concept is actually pretty brilliant and simple. Step 1, you buy electricity when it's super cheap, right? Usually in the middle of the night. Step 2, you use super efficient devices called heat pumps to turn that cheap electricity into thermal energy, basically hot water. And then step 3, you store or bank that hot water in big insulated tanks. So it's just sitting there, ready to be used for heat or showers whenever people need it, even hours later when electricity prices are way higher. It's kind of like having a thermal battery or an energy savings account right there in your basement. But okay, here's where we hit a snag, a really big, really common one. This whole awesome strategy relies on having more storage, which means bigger tanks. But what happens when your building is, say, 80 years old and the door to your mechanical room is tiny? How do you get a giant new tank in there?
This is what people call the small door problem. And believe me, it has killed so many of these projects before they even got started.
So, how do you solve a problem like that? This is where things get really clever. A company actually came up with a genius fix for this exact issue: a thermal tank that's modular. It comes in pieces and you build it right there on site. So, what's so great about this modular tank? Well, for starters, it's super practical. Because it comes in pieces, you can literally install it anywhere. Performance-wise, it's a beast. The insulation is way better than old school steel tanks, so it holds heat for much longer. It's also better on the wallet. The cost per kilowatt hour of storage is lower. And to top it all off, it's better for the planet with a smaller carbon footprint, and it's even 100% recyclable. It just checks all the boxes. And this is the truly cool part. Forget about hiring cranes or knocking down walls. The pieces are so lightweight, you just carry them through a regular doorway by hand. Then you assemble them inside a hoop, pop in a liner, and boom, you have a tank. The whole thing can be done by 2 people in under 15 minutes. And get this, the empty tank weighs a little over 100 pounds. Just like that, the small door problem is gone, solved.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. That sounds amazing in theory, but what about in the real world? Does it actually pencil out? Well, let's look at the numbers from an actual case study and see for ourselves.
So here we have it, a direct comparison. On the left, you have the old system, high emissions, which means, you guessed it, huge potential fines from Local Law 97, plus high energy bills. But look at the right side. With the smart electrification system in place, emissions get slashed, the fines go to zero, poof, gone, and the energy costs just plummet. Just look at the bottom line. That total annual cost difference is staggering.
And if the table wasn't clear enough, this bar chart just screams it at you, right? The cost of running the old system versus the new one, it's not even in the same league. We are talking about a massive, monumental drop in what it costs to run the building every single year.
In fact, when you put the whole package together, these tanks, the heat pumps, the smart controls, the potential savings can be huge. We're talking up to 90% compared to older, less efficient electric heating systems. 90%? That's not just an improvement, that's a total game changer. So, we'll just leave you with this one final thought. Maybe your building is fine today. Maybe you're scraping by and compliant for 2024. But as we've seen, those goalposts are moving, and they're moving fast. So the real question you have to ask yourself is, are you ready for 2030?